Ms. Deachin, your answer?
I know growing up I wasn't allowed to drop out. That wasn't an option. When I look at my children, and when you look at them not for the first time, but when you see them learning something for the first time, there's this spark in their eyes, and it's just incredible, and to see it is awesome. Your parents usually typically are your motivators. They're the first ones that introduce you to things and say, you know, hey, this is how it is, this is what's going on. But sometimes you don't have parents. Sometimes you have to, you know, rely upon your community. And with your community, you need to partner with one another. And that means taking a vested interest, because they will be a future lawyer, a future doctor, a future electrician, whatever. And you need to use those community resources, and you need to implement them, and you need to know how they're being implemented. And then once they're implemented, do they work? If they don't work, well, guess what? You need to go back to that drawing board and figure it out.
Thank you, Ms. Deachin. Ms. Oyenarte, your answer?
This is a real hot spot with me. I have a passion for children and education, and as a volunteer for close to 40 years in the schools, I have seen so much just the loss of children because, number one, lack of ownership with parents and their children. When children come to school, and now in kindergarten, where they're basically 2 to 3 years behind because they do not have materials in their home. My children and my grandchildren have never gone to bed at night or at nap without a book, without 3 stories. These children don't own a book. They don't have any tools. And through the business world and through volunteering, we have tried to take those tools to the children. Mentoring, just every aspect of the business community, every aspect of parenting. You can take this to the children, but if you do not grasp them when they are babies, and when they come to kindergarten, they're still babies, and they're already 3 years behind. Okay, then in first grade, they're behind. Second grade, they're further behind. Well, how can you keep them to stay in high school and not drop out if they have never felt success by the time they're in third grade? And I witnessed that with my own children, and I'm seeing it now with my grandchildren. You have to capture them when they're babies. And then we'll have a much, much higher chance of keeping them in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oyenarte. For our next question, we'll begin with Ms. Vinson. And this question was submitted by the Alachua County Youth Council, so thank you. Should the school board continue with plans to merge Eastside schools? Considering Eastside under enrollment, should we continue to build additional Westside schools?
I'm glad you asked me. That's one of the reasons I'm running too. I care about East Side School. Even though I live on the West Side, we need neighborhood schools in the East Side too. Do you know that there's a lot of single parents don't have transportation and that really want to be involved with their kids? Well, if you have a neighborhood school, they can walk across the street and meet the teacher to greet, or even pick up their kids if they, for whatever reason, need to go home if they're sick. If you take away schools in the East Side, you are doing a disservice to our citizens. We must treat all kids equal and give them that equal opportunity. It's our duty to do that. One thing, too, when keeping schools on the East Side, it make it, you keep them from busing. I hate busing little kids early in the morning to the west side of school. You know, first of all, it's a long trip. When they get there, you know, everybody's probably going to start at school or whatever, and it might be disrupted, you know, do get settled in. It takes away from the kids. It's our duty to provide the same service from the east side on the west side. They pay taxes just like we do, and it's our job and duty to make sure everybody receives that equal opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vinson. Ms. Deachin, your answer?
You don't need to take programs away from Eastside. You actually need to put more programs back. You do have a differentiation between the dynamics of West Side schools and East Side schools. And when you're looking at the dynamics of it, there's not equality across the board. You need to be tolerant. You need to have a diversity of people. That's what makes us who we are as a society. When you're putting in programs, you're actually giving a child a chance. When you're actually instituting them, you're giving a child a chance. When you're taking away from it, you're basically drawing that line between, okay, well, here's West Side and here's East Side, and now you've made it this problem to where you're not going to have equality. That's a problem. Why are you taking away? We're supposed to be adding to it, not taking it away.
Thank you, Ms. Deachin. Ms. Oyenarte?
In my corporate life, I was a corporate volunteer and adopted not one but 3 East Side schools. And those 3 schools knew they could call me for anything. Part of the problem is we have to get economic growth into the east side of town. And until we get businesses to come into the east side of town and put money into the east side of town for employment, it's going to be hard. We have a lot of poverty in the east side of town. We have dodged the bullet. We have not closed any schools in Alachua County. Not like a lot of counties have done. Volusia County, which is now a B and we're an A, they have closed 9 schools. We have not closed any. We'd like to keep them open as long as we can. If we can get VPK and Head Start joining with Family Services and a lot of the other programs on the east side of town, we can fill the classrooms at some of the lower enrolled schools. But it isn't just east side schools that are low. Archer is low, Waldo is low, Hawthorne and Shell. So it isn't just east side Gainesville with low enrollment. All schools deserve a fair chance, and I think we can do that, but it's going to take a community to get involved.
Thank you, Ms. Oyenarte. Mr. Smiley, your answer?
We do not need to be closing east side schools. Here's how we're going to solve it. We need to raise the quality of all schools. And what that's going to do is we're going to be able to bring in the best teachers. We're going to be able to develop our economy in the east side of town. But the only way to do that is to have a tremendous model in our schools. Now, the way that I'm going to work to do that is I have personal experience of analyzing the sorts of programs and materials that we need in low-performing schools. We can't just have somebody on the board that's just going to accept some stamped materials that say higher order thinking on it. Because this is what happens. We accept a lot of materials complacently from the state that are not effective. They say they're higher order thinking, but a true analyst, someone who actually understands it, knows that that's garbage. So we need someone who's going to have active involvement within our schools, who's going to be able to personally overlook the sorts of programs we're going to implement, and that's going to be my job. So getting in a great model for all of our schools, raising that quality across the entire county is my goal. And imagine what we can do with that. Imagine all the money that will flow into this county if we have that sort of those sort of solutions, where solutions against teaching the test, where teachers are actually free to actually teach the material. Imagine how many great teachers are going to want to come to our county to teach. That's what I'm going to do for Alachua.
Thank you, Mr. Smiley. For our next question, we'll actually begin with Ms. Deachin. Should we keep teacher tenure?
Tough question. It's kind of hard to answer. I think if teachers are doing a great job, yeah, you should have your tenure. I think that if you're good at something, you should have your tenure. But there's also that other flip side of the coin. You have those teachers that have tenure and just aren't interested anymore. They don't care to teach. They think they're safe. They don't think that they have to follow by the guidelines. And so you have your future teachers that are very motivated. They're excited about their subject. They're excited about being an educator. As we all are educators, we're all a teacher. And they don't feel like they're getting justice because now they're, those tenured teachers, and I'm not saying all, I'm saying some of those tenured teachers that aren't doing their job like they're supposed to for our children, for our future, because that's essentially what this is about, our future. They now feel that they don't have to meet that level. They don't have to educate anymore. So it's a flip side. I think every teacher should be measured. I think it should be measured on what they do in the classroom, how they perform, what are the outcomes of their teaching, and if they can teach. Because just because you can read a book doesn't mean you can present that information to another person.
Thank you, Ms. Deachin. Ms. Oyenarte, your answer?
Before I answer that, I'd like to make one thing clear on the last question. I don't know if everyone's aware of the magnet programs that are in the East Side schools, and they were placed there for a reason, to keep those schools filled and to keep them with quality students. You have the IB program, you have the technology program. These programs are there to recruit parents to take their children to the east side of town. Now, on the tenure issue, yes, I do believe in tenure, because if we do not have tenure, we will not have teachers. It's already hard enough to get people to go into teaching because of just the salary alone and the benefits. So if they don't have any job security, they're not going to go any place where they don't have it. But that said, I think a very strong system needs to be put into place where administrators are held accountable, teachers are held accountable, and I think that it's up to the parents and the principals, administrators, to really know their teachers. Teachers know who the bad teachers are in the schools. The students know who the bad teachers are in the schools. And above all, the parents. And bless their heart, like my first son, you know, the first one you learn. But there needs to be accountability, absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Oyenarte. Mr. Smiley, your answer?
I also wanted to address something Ms. Oyenarte just brought up. Yeah, we do have IB programs in our East Side schools, and I think that she knows this well, but we need the quality for all of our students, the students that have fallen behind as well. We want to have that high quality education given to them, and it is possible. And the sorts of ideas that I presented tonight are not just my ideas. These are based on decades of research. As far as teacher tenure goes, tenure is important, and I think we should keep it, because how are we going to attract the best teachers without tenure? I think the real question is, it relies on accountability with our teachers. I was absolutely against Senate Bill 6, and one reason that is not always brought up, but it's that it was tied to standardized testing, and you can never tie accountability to the sorts of tests that we're using in our schools. They're ineffective at measuring the students' abilities, and they do not help our teachers to judge where our students are at, whether they're actually understanding the material or not. So we need to rely at the local level with hiring our teachers, grading their performance, judging them on a first-hand basis, not some standardized test from the state. They can't do it.
Thank you, Mr. Smiley. Ms. Benson?
Yes, it's my understanding that tenure is not for teachers at this time. They could be removed. If the administrator observed inefficiencies, they could be removed at any time. So tenure is not a part, at my understanding, with the school board at this time for teachers. However, I believe in tenure. I believe that tenure is a job security. It gives a teacher safe haven. Now, if you're a bad teacher, I'm glad there are places, steps in place that can remove that. That's a granted, and I'm glad for that. Also, let's talk about teachers. Teachers are underpaid at this time. You know, I had several teachers told me, Jancy, I taught in Alachua County, but I quit because as a first-time teacher, they stuck me in a class, and it was bad behavior, it was no support, and I just quit. So let's look at what the teachers are given, and truly look is the subjective, their performance. Are they actually given the tools, the resources needed to teach the kids? Also, I feel that we need to support our teachers. Yes, if we have bad teachers, yes, let's remove them. But let's give them everything possible to be successful first. Give them the chance. And with that, I believe that our county will grow and be a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benson.